proceed with the meeting. First up, let's have a roll call, if you will.
Larry Porter,
Here.
Jack Looney, Garland Land,
Here.
Joe Zack,
Here.
Mark McDonald,
Here.
Jerry Atkins,
Here. It appears that we do have a quorum. The approval of the special meeting of December the 5th. Anyone have any additions or corrections or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the minutes for the special meeting as read and printed.
I second.
Any further discussion? Okay, then let's call the roll.
Larry Porter,
Yes.
Garland Land,
Yes.
Joe Zack,
Yes.
Mark McDonald,
Yes.
Jerry Atkins,
Yes. We have a full set of things to talk about and get through today. And two of our members are requesting that we get finished by 4 this afternoon, 4 o'clock this afternoon. So if we can do that, that would be a good thing. But before we get into that, I just want to say thanks to the city council and to the city manager. We've got new people. Jim has come on and Adam has come on, and we're looking forward to getting to know you better and the expertise that you've brought that we've seen so far in other meetings, and good having you here. Thanks so much for that. Okay, proposed agenda item. Most of you have 2 pieces of paper in front of you. This comes as a project that I thought up quite some time ago about a mission statement for the board. And in looking at that and trying to come up with something, I continued to come down to the last sentence of section 317 of the charter. And that's before you. There's a copy of that before you. And then I had it printed just at the top of a blank page, and that would be how it would basically appear right under the independence utilities and advisory board note. So I would like to present that as a possible thing. It's what we do. It's what we're called to do in the charter. So is any discussion about that?
No, I kind of like the idea of reminding us what our bottom line results should be.
And anybody that reads the things on the agendas on the net or anything would have it right there before them too. Anybody else? Nope.
Need a motion?
That'd be good. Can we do that?
Do we need a motion? Can't we just, we need a motion on that, Christine? I don't think we do, but
you could do it if you want an official vote on the books.
well, there's nobody opposing it, is there? Garland, Garland, are you all right with it?
Well, it seems like our
No. I mean,
mission is broader than that. I mean, that's just one portion of what we're doing, but I mean, if that's what you want to do, I'm okay with it, but that's just.
Well, I originally thought about putting in the whole paragraph, but it was pretty lengthy for the top of a agenda page. So
I make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second.
any further discussion? All in favor? Sorry, need to do a roll call.
Larry Porter,
Yes.
Garland Land,
Garland Land,
Abstain.
okay.
Joe Zach,
Yes.
Mark McDonald,
Yes.
Jerry Atkins.
Yes. Okay, the second agenda item is status of the water pollution control projects. Larry?
Yeah, Lisa, can you give us an update on your budgeted projects?
All of them?
Yeah,
Sure.
every one of them.
Okay. Current year project updates are Fairmount Highlands and Arlington. Both of those projects are in study phase right now, collecting information. Those are the two that it's not clear. There's parallel lines, and who's connected to which line isn't easily distinguishable, and we have some condition issues there. So expecting to those projects studies should be complete this spring on Arlington, and then Fairmount Highlands will follow immediately after. Hoping those should be study and design by the end of 2020, and then construction the following year is the goal. Bison Park, that project actually started, the repair of the force main started yesterday. That's a lift station that's actually just a couple minutes from here. Lots of the rains of this spring and last year revealed a slope stabilization issue that actually caused our force main to start to leak. And so we're actually rerouting it entirely. So that piece started yesterday. Once the force main is rerouted, which we expect to have operational at the end of February, then there's a phase 2 of that project, which is the actual slope stabilization. So we don't continue to lose any part of the station. Neighborhood projects, that is an ongoing project that has several pieces. They range all over the city from 24th and Blue Ridge Terrace, 40th and Spring, 24th Street east of Chrysler. We have more on Spring. That one's completely being done in-house. Cracker Neck Road and Queen Ridge, that one's actually being constructed in-house as well. Most of them we expect for the first three, the 24th Street and Blue Ridge, 40th and 24th Street, those we expect open bids by March of this year. And more in Spring, construction of that, the sanitary piece of that, that's actually a combination sanitary and storm project. Sanitary line is going in as we speak. We have one line segment completed and ready to start the second. We're expecting construction to be complete with sanitary at the end of March. And for the Cracker Neck and Queen Ridge, design and utility coordination complete this summer. On my list, what else? Electrical substation rehabilitation, purchasing has all that information, so we're just waiting on them to bid that out so we can have some work done down at the substation of the plant. We have it feels like an unsafe condition with the switchover if we were to lose one of our, if we were to lose the IPL feed, the switch to the second redundant feed there. Our electrician was the only one that really messed with trying to get that to fail over correctly, and he just retired. So we had an actual issue come up last week where we had to have Eaton come in and actually do the switch and do some work. So it's good timing that that's ready to go out to bid. So we're just waiting on procurement to get that out.
Wait a minute, you're going out to bids on that?
We assume it'll be Eaton because they're breakers, but yes.
Okay, go ahead.
For carryover projects, we have holding basins and pump station improvements. That is a couple of the blowers are going to be replaced at the plant. The blowers we have are oversized, and it's basically just an energy waste. So we're downsizing those to something more appropriate that we can dial in for better treatment. Burr Oak East project is on hold as of now. That is a project that was to put a new sanitary line. It would allow Harvest Hills to hook into city sanitary instead of beyond lagoons. But that project's kind of been hold. There's the property that was going to be donated was owned by the church and the school district, and at this time there doesn't seem to be a big interest on their end to push that forward. So it's kind of stalled out for now. Cracker Neck and Van Hook. This is a project that actually may turn to be a storm project. There used to be a city-run landfill, which obviously wasn't part of WPC, but there is a leachate issue there. And the initial plan, why it's sanitary, is that it was originally planned to collect that leachate and pump it forever to Little Blue Valley Sewer District, but then we're paying to treat it forever. So now we're looking at an option to actually do some stormwater improvements upstream, keep the water off the site altogether, lessen the leachate, and then not have to collect anything. That project is actually currently in DNR's hands. We turned over a plan to do a risk assessment. It's called an MREBECA, which is actually, if they approve that risk assessment based approach, it'll be much more economical fix and probably just a better overall fix, but we're just waiting for DNR's approval.
Will that be in-house?
No, Burns and Mac is working with Public Works on that.
Okay, none of your people will be in.
If it's site grading and things like that, then we would do that as
Oh,
much as we
okay.
can in-house. Security improvements at the plant are almost complete. We're waiting on the gate actuator. It's actually already been ordered. We're just waiting for it to show up and that'll be done. The incinerator / biosolids project should be bid on the 31st of this month. The supplier for the actual lime stabilization equipment and initially come back about 20% higher than their original bid when we started this process. After some review of that and trying to just
Are you gonna
come
be over
down quite a
budget
bit.
on that?
I don't think so. There are a couple things that they're proposing as far as testing and things like that, there's proposed like almost $30,000 in lab testing. We have an in-house lab, so there's no reason currently, unless they're requiring a test that we don't do, we would just take that so we could get that off the price. But we're just waiting for those final details from HDR. I hope to have those tomorrow or Monday. Pacific Avenue's done. Here's our SCADA system upgrade. This is probably the one we're most excited about. Our SCADA system, as you guys have heard, desperately needed replacement at the plant. That project is actually being finalized this week. They're already on the punch list and some just project cleanup. All the antiquated lift stations that the PLCs had been, were no longer replaceable. Those have already been done. The plant was the last piece and that is up and running this week. The cutover went successfully, so we are very excited about that. No more nuisance alarms and having to turn them off. It's great. Arrowhead Shopping Center is a sanitary pipe that was being crushed by another grade stabilization issue. That is construction comments are being reviewed by Public Works, and we're still waiting on those to come back. But we're ready. We're hoping to bid it this winter still, so that one should be going out the door. 28th and Norwood is ready to close. That's done. 16th and Scott. That's another combination sanitary and storm project, and construction's underway, and we're 80% complete on the sanitary. And once sanitary's done, we'll move over to storm. Almost done, I swear. Sermon Center project was actually a combination effort with Parks, and they've put that on hold, so we're just waiting on that. Boiler replacement, and this is another thing that will help us out if anything with biosolids goes out a little high. We had the boiler at the plant looked at and had the manufacturer come in and review it. They said there's no reason to replace it at this time. It's not costing us a fortune in maintenance, so we do have some dollars we could potentially reallocate if necessary to the biosolids project from that. And the Sugar Creek platform and stair railing project is complete as of this week. They finished their punch list items Tuesday, I think. And Trenchless Technology is just an ongoing project. We do have another authorization that's getting ready to go out the door. And overall percent of our system that's been lined, we're up to just over 12%.
Cool.
That's it.
Thank you. Do you have an amount in reserve for any emergencies? Do you have any money?
We don't have an emergency fund in sanitary. We do have some projects that if we need to reallocate money from projects that are getting ready to close, we do that at the project closeout time. If we know one's going to go over, we move that straight
But
into
so
the
far
project.
you're in budget,
But
right?
we're still okay so far, yep.
So far, so good.
Yep.
That's what a guy told me one time.
Did you believe him?
Well, I was on the fourth floor, and he was on the 10th floor, and he jumped out the window. And as he went by, he said, "So far, so good."
Fantastic.
That's all I got. Thank you. Anybody else got
Yeah, any
questions?
questions, Elisa? No conclusion? Nope, okay. Moving along, I have had a water and IPL and wastewater conservation programs running around my head for quite some time. Models for all this stuff are on the net, and my thought would be to have my thought would be to research the net and other places and get just a one portion or one page of lists that can go out in our water bills. So all we're really paying for extra would be some printing. And the water one would be things like make sure your faucets aren't leaking and your stool's seal is functioning right. And there are a bunch of ideas about that, but just to remind people that conservation is a good thing and that water and lights and sewer don't just come free. They cost them money, and if they want to save money, then here's a good place to start. About the IPL one, it would be like thinking about having motion detectors outside instead of having their lights run all night, or those kinds of ideas. And back to you, Lisa. The wastewater one would be don't throw your paint cans or whatever in the trash or in the sewer, and have us have to worry about that. So there's a whole list of those things, different places, but certainly on the net. And I would just like to get that before us, and I'll kind of work with the three managers, and maybe we can come up with some things over time to make that be a reality. So that's all I have on that. Any questions about that?
Dan, don't we have something that goes out in the flyer with that? We used to have thought.
Yeah, you can go to the website and pull up probably every one of our departments and find all kinds of ideas and things to keep an eye on and that type of thing. So, and as far as, Meg put stuff in that we add stuff throughout, we probably recycled a lot of things through the years to answer your question. Larry, you've seen them through the years, but I don't know of any one where we're just sending out an extra item in the bills.
Yeah, my thought would be, it'd be a list of things that people could look at around their home or factory to do this list.
Yeah.
Anything else on that issue? Okay. Moving along then, Larry wants a status on independent utility financial audit.
Yeah, Adam, I don't know whether you can answer this or not. Maybe our financial advisor over here can. We're supposed to have an audit every year on items going from power and light and water and sewer to the general fund in lieu of taxes. Do we have that audit?
We have the unaudited financial statements right now. However, there are additional procedures that are being done right now before the actual audit report is submitted. And that has to do with some feedback, both from a audit questionnaire that was sent out to the management team and to the city council. And then, of course, from your management analyst that called out concerns in IPL transactions. So that prompted then our auditor to come back and do additional procedures in order to make sure that all specifically all grant funds are properly reviewed and audited. As part of their normal audit, they do look at the in lieu of tax calculations and transfers back and forth. But there's not a specific audit done on the external basis on that specific transaction. It's part of our overall annual audit.
But wouldn't it be in that audit? We could see it?
That you could see the transfers?
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, the financials that we handed out that was in your packet includes those transfers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And maybe you can ask.
Is there a detail for it? Rather than just a lump sum line?
The detail for the transfer transactions? What you'll see in the detail is just basically each month showing the amount. I'm not, we should be able to find what went into that amount. Is that what you're asking for? Okay.
I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah. Also, do you know, Adam, how many vehicles we gave, electric vehicles we gave to the general fund?
I don't recall the exact number. In going through the financials with Brian a few days ago, I know that's accounted for, that money that is owed to IPL for those vehicles is accounted for in these statements.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that issue? All right, then, Mark. Calculations.
Yeah, about the recalculate the electric peak load requirement. And I think thanks to the rate committee, I think, Mr. Nail, you addressed that we're down to 289 is the new peak.
I believe that is the most current. And the shorter answer is we reevaluate that every year already.
Okay.
We look at what our historic load was. We look at weather projections, load growth projections, and all of that is reported to SPP every year.
So according to SPP, our number that we should be trying to reach is 289 versus the what used to be 312 or something.
315 was the historic peak.
Okay.
But that was like 2003. So
Okay.
if you look at more recent history, it's come down off of that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Anything else on that issue? Easy.
I like
Okey dokey. Mark, you wanna talk about some questions on the combustion turbines?
Oh, we had a motion here that I presented, I think last month, and it went to the rate committee this month, and no, it went to the city council. I'm sorry, and Adam had taken our motion and turned it into a resolution, and the mayor had questions about whether or not they matched up or they didn't match up. I'll be quite frank with you. I thought they looked pretty close and married each other very well, but at the same time, I am more than happy to put in a motion to remove my motion and just go with the resolution that Adam has so kindly come up with. I think it's in line with what we're looking for, and hopefully for planning in the future, and take a much more proactive approach to planning our needs for the future rather than just letting it happen to us in the future. So let me know when I need to make a motion to.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we pull back the motion from the previous PUAB meeting that starts with removing power production from, thank you. The combustion turbines future motion, per Independence, Missouri City Charter Section 3.169, the PUAB is submitting a motion to eliminate energy production within the Independence Power and Light. And I think everybody else knows what it is. So I'd like to make a motion to pull that and to have the resolution that Mr. Norris has put together to be resubmitted to the city council for consideration.
I'll second that.
He seconded it.
Yeah, second. And discussion? The motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Larry Porter,
Yes.
Garland Land,
Yes.
Joe Zach,
Yes.
Mark McDonald,
Yes.
Jerry Atkins.
Yes.
I'd like to say one thing after it's been approved. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the working relationship that we are having between the council, Mr. Norris, and hopefully Mr. Nail in the future. It's something that's been desperately needed for the PAB to be effective and to be an advisory role. And instead of just one of the councilmen would say a rubber stamp. And I truly appreciate that. And I think I see great things in our future. Thank you.
Okay, that's been pulled and your resolution is going forward, so I think that's been agreed to, but should we have that read possibly? You have it?
It's in your packet. I don't, it's a pretty extensive resolution.
It was sent out. It was sent out.
It was sent out also.
Yes,
Okay.
and as of right now, it'll be on next week's city council agenda, since you all are approving it.
Okay, anything else on that? Nope. Wholesale water contract update, and Dan, you can explain that.
Okay, so just give you a little background history going back to where we were back in November 21st in 2019 at the PUAB meeting. I shared that we were working with the city of Sugar Creek on a water service termination cooperative agreement to address non-payment of sewer bills. So this isn't about the wholesale. That one was approved and taken care of. But I had sent out the team, our water department, we had a draft copy sent to Sugar Creek to review that had already been reviewed by our staff. Charlesworth Consulting had reviewed it make sure it met all the insurance guidelines that we needed to do. And then our legal department took a look at it, and we got all the comments back. We sent it over to Sugar Creek, expecting them to mark it up, run it through the law department, have to go back and forth. But we were pleasantly surprised that Pat Casey on December 10th just sent it back approved, which kind of surprised us in the fact that it was so quick. Obviously, it's something they've been looking forward to having done. So their alderman approved it on December the 9th, and I explained to Pat that I'd have to still bring it to our council, to the PUAB. So I had contacted you, Jerry, and just said, hey, I'll bring it to you. We'll have the first reading at our council meeting on January the 6th, knowing full well that we wouldn't approve it until the second reading, which is next Tuesday. So it was an opportunity for you all to see the final copy of what Sugar Creek and that we had agreed to do. So therefore, I've included in your packet the Water Service Termination Cooperative Agreement. There's a few pages of that, a cover memo that I'd sent to Zach and he had approved in the city manager's office, and the ordinance that then the final reading, everything's set up for next Tuesday. And I just wanted to give you all an opportunity to at least see what we were working on. I know we discussed it in length back in November, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to run it through you. I think it's going to be beneficial to both parties. I'm hearing from the Sugar Creek mayor and from Pat Casey, their city administrator, that just the fact that they're talking about doing this, that people are starting to pay their sewer bills. Because before, since we had their water-only customers to us, since we had the water and they couldn't shut off the water if they didn't pay their sewer bill, they just weren't paying the sewer bill. There's some of them have $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 sewer bills, just never pay it. There's no consequence. But now the fact that they will have this working arrangement with us, and the way it'll work, we will send a letter out at their request. They'll send a letter, we'll send a letter saying we're going to be out to shut you off, give them an opportunity to pay up the sewer bill. And if they choose not to pay up the sewer bill, then Sugar Creek will have us go out and then disconnect them. So that's what's going on, and it's something we went and spoke to City of Columbia about Our customer service manager now came from Columbia. She knew that that's what they had. It worked well there. It's a state statute, and it's all mentioned in the information that I gave you. It's legal thing we can do, and of course, legal reviewed it, so we're in good shape there. But so we look forward to working with them, and hopefully, once a couple of these are performed, we do a couple shut-offs, word will get out. And my understanding is that they might not have one of these a month in Columbia now, because people know that that's not an option, just not to pay their sewer bill. So anyway, I appreciate your support. If for some reason or other you didn't want to do it, I would have to explain it to the council on Tuesday night. So
Dan, you did say you're not going to shut off unless Sugar Creek City tells you to.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll shut them off now if they don't pay their water bill, but
Right.
but if they
If it's on the sewer,
yeah, they've got forms in here they'll fill out, send to us, and state that they've made contact with these folks, and they'll have
so those
plenty of
folks
opportunity.
know that it's going to be shut off.
Yes, they will. They'll have plenty of opportunity to get it paid before we shut them off. We don't want to do it. I mean, they're obviously water paying customers of ours too, but
We want $4,000 past due account.
yeah, that's not good for Sugar Creek. I understand that. So anyway,
Any questions about this or comments?
So you need a motion,
yeah, I would appreciate it. You don't have to. I mean,
make
I
a motion to support.
thank you.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Larry?
No, we're going along fine.
Yeah,
We've got an hour left.
We're moving along. Okay, roll call on that motion.
Larry Porter,
Yes.
Garland Land,
Yes.
Joe Zack,
Yes.
Mark McDonald,
Yes.
Jerry Atkins.
Yes. Okay, Adam, we're gonna let you have the next one here, this IPL priorities. Bring us up to date on where we are. And thanks again for stepping in and being here.
You bet. Glad to be here. So, as you all know, the city manager kind of realigned the reporting structure with departments last month. Can you all hear me okay I'm leaning back from this microphone. And so we have kind of a development services side and a public services side. And so Mr. Randall oversees the public services side of the organization, and I'm responsible for the development services side of the organization, which includes the utilities. Since assuming this new role, we've promoted Jim Nail, and I think we're real lucky to have him in this leadership role to guide us here. While my initial focus has been a lot on IPL, I've taken time to learn the other parts of the operations here with water and WPC and getting to know those folks as well. And I appreciate everyone's patience, including yours, as we've gone through this transition, because it is a little bit of a learning curve to pick some of this stuff up. So, as you all know, IPL is going through a bit of a transformation right now. We have a lot of big decisions that we've either done, that are completed, or we're in the process of, or we need to plan for in the near future. And during those times of change, there's a lot of uncertainty that creates a lot of stress on an organization, and it kind of creates a lack of clarity in our mission, and it has the potential to lead to poorly executing some of these things. So what I wanted to do is kind of outline what I understand are the priorities for IPL over the next few months, few weeks, few years, and kind of get some support and buy-in on what those priorities are from different stakeholder groups, Rates Committee, PUAB, and the City Council. And that gives us an idea of where we need to go and take this organization. And that gives, some clarity to the folks that are going to have to be actually doing this work and putting these plans together and executing, okay? So my goal here is to get some feedback from you all to ensure this lines up with what you think is appropriate. And I guess before I go through these priorities, I want to say this is not a linear process, okay? This is not, we're going to work on priority 1 and then we're going to work on priority 2. And in fact, when you look at this list, we're in all of these in some form or fashion right now. So we're doing these as we go, but this again gives us a sense of priority when we're forced to make some decisions. Okay, so I'd start with priority 1A. Priority 1 really has to do with our financial position and our financial reporting, and so getting our year-end financials presented to this body, and then having an ongoing financial reporting structure to come to this group. And so we're starting that today with the year-end financials, and then on an ongoing basis, those will be presented to you. Okay. One of our imminent deadlines that's coming up is getting our budget ready. We have to submit that by the end of this month. So Water Department, WPC, IPL, we're all doing that right now. Okay. And then one priority that we added based on the first rates committee meeting that we had 2 Fridays ago was adding, developing some financial policies for IPL. And I believe my hope would be that once we get down to priority 3, which is getting the third-party management firm in to help us, they could maybe guide us through and help us develop some of those financial policies based on their knowledge and expertise. So that's priority 1. Priority 2 is.
Could you?
Yes, sir.
Could you explain that a little bit more in terms of financial policies that you're envisioning? What type of policies are you sensing that we don't have that you're going to beef up?
Oh, I think it could be anything from. I think just the top-down review is warranted anytime we're kind of taking a fresh look at things. Could be our purchasing policy. How we're accounting for certain projects. I mean, do you have any other ideas, Brian?
Sure. I know there was time spent on the 60-day policy that was passed. I think we haven't formalized all of the recommendations that our financial advisors had talked about. Some debt ratios and I'm trying to think of some of those other terms. But some of those things that Moody's or S&P's taken a look at, so they thought maybe it'd be a good idea if we actually formalize some of those policies right now. Yeah, I'm sorry, the liquidity calculations and stuff. And so even though we aim towards it, they felt that it's probably a good idea to have that in the formal policies. So
well, I think going back to what we agreed to earlier on. I'm sorry.
The depreciation accruals, amortization, and so forth, all those, we really don't have good definitions of a lot of those. And I think that's what's created some of the confusions in the past that, we've said that we want to have rate reductions and so forth from the annual profits, but we've never defined what that means. And I think if that's what you're hoping to accomplish, I certainly support that, because I think that's created a lot of angst in independence. Is why do we building up reserves when you should be giving the money back to the rate to our customers?
sure, I believe that's exactly where that was coming
Okay.
from. I believe you spoke with the rates committee
Mm-hmm.
specifically about those type of items.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. And you hit on it very squarely, Mr. Land. I think as we go forward with all our utilities, we need to be looking at our financials in 5-year increments, long term, not year to year,
Right.
so we can accurately plan and be good stewards of the resources we have. Okay. So I think that's a big objective as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so moving on to priority 2, which is one that's coming around towards the end of this month, is the rate structure. So we're targeting the January 27th work session for the City Council to have a presentation and summary for the council to see. So we'd get you kind of a summary report at about the same time. Okay. 3, selection and negotiation of agreement with third-party management firm. I won't go through all this because I know we need to keep moving. So if you have questions about my write-up here, please ask me. But a quick update on that. We have interviews set up, I think, the last week of this month to interview those 3 finalist firms, and we'll move forward from there. Okay. Blue Valley plant closure. We are meeting with IBW next Friday, and we're due to present them what staff reductions, what that staffing plan will look like going forward. So we're due to present that to them next week. We're finalizing those plans right now, including, if there's any employees that could potentially transition to other positions throughout the city or within the department, what kind of potential severance agreement, severance language employees will receive, those types of things. Those are all details we're finalizing and working with IBW on right now. Plant repurposing, I think we are finalizing what it's called an RFI, request for information, that we'll be putting out towards the end of this month to evaluate kind of the universe of ideas available for repurposing that plant. Okay. And I think that was a part of the resolution the city council approved. Management analyst findings and overtime issues. So the city's management analyst issued a preliminary report of his findings. I think he issued that a little preliminarily because of the concerns that he had seen. He wanted to raise those as soon as he could. So we're looking into those as Brian had mentioned. Some of those findings kind of triggered an additional review by our auditors. So that's ongoing right now. Results of that are due in March, I believe. Okay. The overtime and standby pay has received a lot of attention in the media and other places. Jim and I are working on, and affected staff, we're working on a plan to address that right now. We should have that finalized very soon. What we want to ensure, we do have a policy in our personnel manual that speaks to this very thing, and we want to make sure that across the organization we are applying that policy consistently and fairly. Okay. This is a long-standing practice, and kind of unwinding this thing is pretty complicated. So, future of IPL production, the rates committee meeting last Friday, we spent basically the whole meeting talking through the questions that the rates committee had for us on the future of those combustion turbines, and I believe we've answered many of those questions now. I think the bottom line is that while we don't want to sit back and wait, there is a little bit of time we have to make a thoughtful, deliberate decision and not have a decision made for us. So that is the posture Jim and I are taking with that. Okay. I think what we need to do is really develop a timeline and kind of back into an end date and work our way backwards from that to see what those key decision points are, to give some level of assurance to everyone involved, what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it. Okay. Anybody have questions about that one? That's a biggie. Does anybody have any questions about that one? It's a pretty big one. Okay. And then the final priority. So these got priority 6 and 7 were switched based on the rates committee feedback. So I originally had municipal broadband as number 6 and CTs as number 7, but based on that feedback, I switched those. So municipal broadband is a priority that of the city council, and the chamber seems to have gotten behind and wanted to support this as well. There's a lot of details to still work through on that. Who's going to lead that? Is it going to be more of a civic-led project, and we're kind of a technical support and advisor, or can our third-party management firm, maybe they have some expertise on that, maybe they can advise us or advise the chamber and that group on it. So there's a lot to be worked out there. But I think we did have an early business plan developed that kind of talked to this, and that would have to be updated as well if we were to move forward. If this were to gain momentum, we would eventually need to start planning for that in our budget and everything else. But there's a lot of work to do there. on that certainly. So that is our list of priorities as we understand them and see them. We'd welcome feedback on this that you have.
The broadband is new. I haven't heard that mentioned actually as a project.
Mhm.
Is it too early to have that discussed in public forum, or in just a general context? Or
Yeah.
I know it's low on your priority list, so it sounds like it's down the road quite a ways. But is at some future date could it at least hear something about it, or not?
Absolutely. We'd be glad once we get a little some of these other projects behind us and we get a little momentum on this broadband project and a little bit of clarity, we'd absolutely be glad to come back and present some information to you about what this looks like. Absolutely. It is very, very early right now. You're exactly right.
So it sounds.
I have a question on that. I strongly endorse 1 through 6. Number 7, I don't know that it really should be on your list of priorities right now with the turmoil that we have and the transition that we need to do at IPL. We're going to get into the discussion of whether broadband fits into the role of IPL to begin with, or whether in the charter it's actually addressed as a function of the city. So I'd like to move that we endorse 1 through 6, and whether it's just temporarily, or I think number 7 should be taken off the list at this point. That's what I would recommend.
That's a motion.
I second it.
Okay, any discussion on this motion? I guess the actual purpose would be to table.
Well, I second it, but I think this is sort of like the other plans. We're looking at way down the line. We're not looking at this coming up tomorrow.
Right. That's correct.
I mean, it's going to be way down the line. I'm just pleased, think, that we have something here in black and white that tells us what's going on, rather than coming and giving me a smoke and mirror act. I know what's going on, and I appreciate your effort in this. But I'm like Mark, I'll second his motion, but I don't know that really, I don't know how far down the line it really is. I mean, I would assume that we're going to fix these other things before we even get to 7.
Yeah.
So, but I do second your motion if you want to vote on it.
Yeah, that's why I don't know that I'm willing to take it off. I think I just want to hear what it is, and then it's probably years before we even get to, is my guess. Is that right?
It's probably very early to tell what the timeline would be on that, quite honestly.
Yeah. I mean, we're still talking about 1 through 6 essentially that we're focused on, and so let's not get too concerned about 7 right now. Let's focus on 1 through 6, and then when 7 comes up, then we can decide, is it something, there might be another 1 through 6 pop up at that point in time. So I'd say let's leave it on there, and then we'll evaluate at that point in time if it's really something that we want to focus on or not. Or I'm going to leave it on there. If the city council has been talking about it for some time, let's just leave it on there and see what happens. That's kind of the way I would look at it.
The motion, however, is to deal with 1 through 6 and leave 7 off, and that's been seconded. Anybody else discussion? Nope. Okay, please call the roll.
Larry Porter,
Yes.
Garland Land,
No.
Joe Zack,
Yes.
Mark McDonald,
Yes.
Jerry Adkins.
Yes.
Again,
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. This does really help us out.
I want to thank you again for this report. It has something that I can take it home halftime of the Chiefs game, read it, go over it some more. I really appreciate your effort on it.
Thank you.
Do we have anything else?
We do.
Yes.
What?
Brian, the next issue, number 9 there, is that one, are you presenting that? Who's presenting that? Financial
Oh,
Department.
am I? Okay. Sorry, I didn't actually look at the agenda.
You're the
So nine. Okay. Okay.
You're finished?
No, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So,
It's your turn.
so the financials were presented as part of your packet. If you notice, I handed out an additional one with little numbers next to it. I'm totally geeking out about this stuff because who doesn't, right? This is good financial information. There's 27 little points on here, probably more than what we want to go through. So I'm going to try to hit some of those. But if you have any questions, more than likely the question will refer back to a number, and hopefully everyone would be on the same page. I wasn't really sure the best way to do it because I think last time I started talking and we were kind of getting off on other pages and everything. Just real quick, what we've presented, this is the June 30th, 2019 report. It's our final financial report for the fiscal year ending on June 30th, 2019. They are non-audited. I think I explained that before. I'm pretty sure most of the numbers are not going to change in here. However, again, there's additional procedures that are being done before the audit report is put together. So the first 2 pages are the audited GAAP basis financials, and I say GAAP, and I know I've talked about that before. It's generally accepted accounting principles, and the first reports are based on a value based. What is the value of the organization? Because that's how other utilities look at their financials. That's how we look at our financials, so we can look across the board and they all look the same. So when I'm talking about the financials on the GAAP basis, I'm talking about what is the value of the organization. The last 3 pages are the budget or the resource based, and it's individual each page for each one of the 3 utility funds. And those are based on what is it that we have available. What did we tell our ratepayers that we were going to do with the rates? Are we doing the projects that we said we'd do? And you had some examples today where we were going down and talking about the different projects. But and then are the resources coming in like we thought they were going to in the budget? So that's just a general overview why I'm showing you 2 different reports. Some highlights. I'll say on the first page, it's the balance sheet, if you will. It has all 3 utilities line by line or in different columns. Very small print. But the first thing I would point out is on where you see the number 3, due from other funds. Mr. Norris had mentioned we have recorded what the other funds owe the different utilities. And so the first column to the power and light is $222,000. That's what the loan to general fund was for 5 or for several vehicles. I'm sorry, I don't remember right offhand how the number of vehicles. And then the next column over, the $2.4 million, that's the amount that is outstanding at June 30th for the Uptown Market loan from the water fund.
The cars are not in lieu of taxes.
Correct. They're not.
They're paying back.
It's a separate loan, and you'll see that balance go down each year because we're making biannual payments from the general fund back into the.
Same way with market to the.
Correct. Yeah, we're required to. And we're required to show it on the financials. And so that's what's interesting is if you looked at an income report GAAP basis, you wouldn't see that transaction happening because the value doesn't change. The cash in the receivable is the same value to a company. So we wouldn't show it on that. And that's why we like to show the operational, the budget side of this as resources, because that does show transactions from one fund to the other. And it shows the resources coming back into the different utilities.
Brian, I probably messed up and didn't hear you correctly. On that first one, that 222,
Correct.
could that be the electric vehicles? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, that is electric vehicles.
Thank you.
Did I may
No,
have-
you probably did, and I just didn't hear it.
Yes, that is electric vehicles.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
The next one is, one thing I wanted to point out is the capital assets. This line shows us the total net of depreciation value of the infrastructure for each one of the utilities. So, just reading across the total, capital assets is around 235 million for power and light, 120 million for water, and 146 million for, WPC. And that's the value of the infrastructure. First of all, the land plus the infrastructure in the ground.
One question. Did we have a plan at one point that we were going to look at the way we depreciated, like the assets of IPL and all the utilities, that we might look at it, doing it a different way?
So, this is when the two accountants on the far wall there's not going to be very happy, because as accountants they don't like to be pointed out.
Oh, okay.
But I want to introduce Kendra Hutzel. There on the left, and she is our controller over all three utilities.
Oh, okay.
And then next to her is Natalia Fairchild, who just recently came on board. This is like her third or fourth day. So maybe I'll have Natalia stand up and explain.
Let's have her come up and we'll question her.
Yeah, I texted her that I was going to do that. She was not very. She didn't think the humor in that. That is an item I'm going to pass along to those two, because there are different methods you can use for a gap basis reporting.
Correct.
I believe the depreciation methods we're using are standard and are good. I think one thing we might look at is what we identified as the standard life. So as a building ages, maybe originally we said, well, this asset's going to last 50 years. Now 30 years into it, we realize it's going to last another 40 years. And so what you would do in that case, it would change the depreciation amount each year.
Yeah,
because now we have
project to extend the life of the.
Exactly. Exactly. So we'll take a look at that as one of our projects, or ask the auditors also to
And
take
that
a look
should
at.
answer the question on the amount that should be depreciated every year. That's a part of 3.17 of the charter.
Yes.
Thank you.
I get where you're coming with that.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
All right. So I'll skip down to item 6, non-current liabilities, revenue bonds payable. I don't know if you see that. It's number 6 reading across.
Yes.
This shows the outstanding revenue bonds for each one of our funds.
Enterprise.
And I just think that's important that you guys are aware of that. And of course S&P takes a look at that on ratios and our ability to pay off. And that again goes back to what Mr. Norris was talking about what is our goal, what's ratios we want to be, how does it fit into our rate model
Right.
that we're developing. Something really important I believe we want to talk about real quick is the OPEB liability. Pretty exciting, number 7, right?
I'm excited.
Yeah. So that's the other post-employment benefits, and why it's shown on this type of report is because it lowers the value again of our operations for anything that we have that is due, and in this case it's to our retirees. And so this amount then takes out of the value the cost of future payments for health insurance. And so again, for IPL, that amount is 43 million, 12.5 million for water, and 8.8 million for sanitary sewer. I will say, in one fell swoop, the council lowered that by a third. It used to be, again, a third higher, and that was because we used to cover post-65 retirees completely on our plan, and now what we've done is had an agreement where post-65s then goes Medicare, and the city pays a portion of that. But that effectively cut those balances by a third, and really does. Again, the bottom line: last year we had a negative unrestricted assets in IPL because of that liability, and now if you go to the bottom, it's like a $37 million. So it really has a huge impact on our financial statements and on the value of the organization. So I'm going to skip over because I can tell people are getting a little bit too excited. I need to get things calmed down a little bit. On the proprietary funds, number 10, it's on the statement of revenue and expenses. Just, again, this is our total operating revenues. Again, they're GAAP basis, so that means that it's a revenue when they're billed out. And as you read across, it's 145 million, 32 million, and 30 million. I do want to remind that this is as of June 30th, this last fiscal year. And so any rate reductions probably were not included in these amounts.
Because they kicked in August.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think that
okay. Number 11, depreciation and amortization, very standard. Again, just that's where you would find that. And then under capital contributions, number 12, I believe you were asking about our payments in lieu of taxes. That's those amounts right there. So that shows the 14 million, 3 million, and roughly 3 million that were payments in lieu of taxes out of this. And I've already messaged the accountants on the wall back there, and they'll be providing some additional detail on what those are. Then number 13, real quick, is this is actual dollar figure of the impact of that change to retiree health insurance. So the value went up by 25.7 million in IPL, 6.9 million in water, and then 5.7 million dollars. It is a very significant. Yeah. I'm pretty impressed with the leadership and the represented groups that were able to come to that. Then the last 3 pages again are those resource-based. This is the budget to actual. And you'll see in all of these, just pointing out line 15, total operating revenues. In this case, Power and Light came in right at 101% of what they had projected were going to be the revenues. Operating expenses, they came in at 93% of what they thought the operating expenditures were going to be. And then on line 17, you'll see the $8.8 million was the difference between the revenues and expenditures. Number 18 is what we would refer to as our net restricted, unrestricted resources. And that amount, and we've talked about this in previous meetings, is basically the cash on hand, the current receivables, payables that we're going to turn over in a short period of time, but unrestricted cash, less these items you see around line number 19. So we're going to take all the resources that we have available, and if you're looking at this, we have current debt service that's going to be due of 4.9 million. So we take that out and save it for that payment. $16 million of capital improvement reserve that previous councils previous councils has approved in previous budgets that's been set aside. So we're basically setting aside that money out of the total cash to get down to that 22 million. Operating reserve, that's that 60 days. We kind of take that out just kind of as a show what that would be. Capital projects in progress, so any of these projects that, like Lee said, just talked about, and then any open contracts. So that kind of shows we do have 82 million, but almost $60 million of that is pretty much answered for. It's not something that we have resources for. We can start a new project based on that, and so that's where then IPL starts at 22.
I have one quick question along with all the other ones. I know that, and this is for Mr. Nail and Mr. Norris, I know that during one of our previous rate committee meetings, capital projects was one of the issues that was brought up. And it was quite a number of those issues that looked like they could either be taken off the capital budget that we currently are looking at or rearranged, I think. I wonder if we could find out what the true blue approved capital budget is for IPL and WPC and the water department. I know Mr. Nail will only be in charge of IPL.
Yeah, we're going through the CIP process here very soon.
Okay.
So we can work on
Yeah,
that.
some of those things have been on there for eons that need to be taken off.
Understood.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the last two pages, again, are water and WPC respectively. They're basically structured the same way. So you should be able to look straight to those lines. And so you'll see that water was 99.9% of it. And I will say all three of the operations were right on track with their budgeted revenues. They came in right at the budget, and the expenditures were right under the budgeted expenditures for operations. And so then you can also, you have in front of you those additional details.
So I'd like to put an even more positive face on this. The way I looked at it, this is really a very positive report the way I see it, and that IPL budget was to come in at a $1.5 million negative figure. That is, expenses were to be $1.5 million over budget. Actually, their income was $8.8 million income over expenses. I mean, that is pretty significant that they, in terms of their income, was $8.8 million over their expenses. And most of that was because they reduced the number of expenses for personal services and for supplies. And the same thing occurred for the other two departments. Water came in. They had projected that they were going to make $2 million. They came in at $5.9 million. They tripled what they had expected in terms of their income over expenses. And sewer came in. They had projected $182,000 income, and they came in at 1.6. So all three departments came in significantly more than what they had projected in terms of income over expenses. I really think that they ought to be recognized for very good management over this last fiscal year.
I don't think they could have made it without us.
That's right.
If you don't mind, I do want to point out one thing, and I agree that they definitely are budget gurus over there. There are probably some answers to why that is. And first of all, even though it's 8.8 million, if we're looking at percentages, that's right on track. 101% revenue, 93% expenditures, and of course your and lieu of is going to be a little higher than what we planned because our revenues were higher than what we planned. But you might find that, especially water and WPC, some of those expenditures may have been capital projects that weren't complete yet in the fiscal year. And so that may have been an adjustment why the expenditures were low. But I think overall they were still low. But some of it may be, again, it goes back to why we do resource-based. Here's what we said we were going to do. Did we do it? And that then brings up those questions that you have. But I just wonder. I'm sorry. I'm going to just turn this on. They're awesome. I'm just going to turn that.
One thing I'd like to add is I'd like for this to be on the agenda for next month so that we can ask some questions to get inside some of these numbers. That's what I would like to do. But I do appreciate what you've given us, and it is a great showing for the year. Thank you.
If I may ask, have a request here. If you have any questions in advance of the meeting, please get those to me, and then we can dig into those a little bit better for you all during that meeting. That would be helpful for all of us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else in this report?
No, but I would be remiss if I did not mention that. It does come from a lot of work from the actual, each of the departments. Our department is combining, I know both Matt and Lisa and her crew, and of course, Robert, who's doing several jobs right now, is really, really very helpful for that. So I just need to make sure I'm not remiss it.
And the mistakes are theirs too, I guess. Okay, Reports from the departments. Lisa, do you have anything you want to report?
I talked about the two things I was gonna update you on during the project status, but if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Water?
I'm good also. No additional.
And I feel? Nothing? Okay, great. Board member comments. Anybody want to say anything?
Yeah. I'd like to discuss amongst the board and probably with you people too of changing the meeting times for the PUAB to 6 o'clock at City Hall so that we can get more board members and more people interested. We're having a difficult time getting board members because they're not retired like I am, and they can't come to meetings. Is this going to affect any of you for one day a month showing up at City Hall?
So we, every Monday we have a meeting, a city council meeting. The mayor has asked me about this or mentioned changing the meeting time as well, and I've talked with the team here a little bit. One option to consider, I certainly can't tell you all what to do, would be have it at 7:30 a.m. On Thursday mornings.
Are you kidding me? I'm retired. 7:30.
And you're also looking for a quorum?
Ooh.
Just an idea.
Well, my point on that would be, if we're trying to get more people that are currently in the workforce, that 7:30 in the morning would not work, I don't think. Most people have to be at work at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning, whatever people have to go to work for. Thank God I don't have to anymore. But could we still have it here possibly?
Well, we could, but
if there's no time available at the city hall.
I'd like to bring it up that, everybody on that side is working. So 6 o'clock at night just adds another couple hours to your 12-hour day. So, we got to consider that. And all of you people it's running that side of the forum, you got enough going on during the day to prolong it to 6 o'clock at night. That's the way I feel about it. And I'm against changing it. If it suits for you people, do your work day. I understand, we're retired and we can move around a little bit. But I also worked there and I knew you really didn't have a schedule. And 24/7 was routine. And you just don't want to have to work some more at 6 o'clock at night to add to your problems that you have, your day-to-day problems. That's the way I feel about it. Thank you.
that's why I wanted to ask him, because I wanted to see if there was a conflict with you. And but I know that I was approached by the same person you were, and we're having difficulty having a full board. Is what we're doing, and I think we need a full board. But if I agree with you too, isn't most of your all's offices out in this building? Huh? So it's much easier. I wouldn't want you driving all the way up to City Hall. And then he just has to drive out here. So I guess it could be looked into and see if some of you staff members could figure out something that would, help a little bit as far as setting a new time. And I would like, Christine, please get Jim a sign, please.
Yeah, well, if he stays around that long. Yeah.
Special.
Well, don't send him to Oklahoma, please.
You brought this up. Did you want to, somebody came to you, you brought it up here.
Yeah.
And is there some urgency about doing this so that we can get another board member?
No, there's no urgency. I just threw it out on the table because I had 15 minutes left. 4 o'clock.
Okay,
I'm leaving.
He has something.
And if I could say, I was on the council interview committee, and we're not getting any applications for the PUAB because of their meeting times. I'm just telling you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I know that we looked at it earlier, And the only time that was available, that Steve could do the taping at City Hall was on Thursday nights. If that matters to anybody.
It's on Thursday night?
Yeah. City Hall's busy every night except Thursday night.
That'd be a perfect.
Go ahead, Mr. Norris.
All right. How about we'll huddle up, take a look at this, and come up with some ideas to bring back to this group.
I appreciate it.
All right.
I think it'd be a good idea.
All right,
I'm sorry, that accomplishes availability for other folks.
I'd like to have for a future agenda item, a report on the solar farms, particularly on the Rockwood farm, what the status of that is in terms of the number of people who've signed up for it, and the income versus expenses. And also, you know, a lot of us signed up for a solar farm, but then we've had rate reductions. And are we going to get a rate reduction for those who signed up for the solar farm? You know, we signed up based upon the old rates for IPL, and now I've never heard a discussion if the rates are going to be based upon for the solar farm. So I just like to have, you know, we need to have a discussion on the solar farm, what the status of the solar farm is for both Bunshoe and Rockwood, and have that separated out. I don't want to have them combined. I want to have separate discussion on both of the status of the two. Second thing, I think it would be helpful when any one of us makes a motion, a resolution, if that were presented in the packet ahead of time, so that we usually, anytime one of the staff presents a resolution to us, it is sent out ahead of time so that we can have an opportunity to see it. But sometimes we have a resolution presented by one of our members, and it's just presented, and we don't really have a chance to look at it ahead of time and think about it. And I think it would be very helpful if that would be just part of our way we do business, is if that whenever we're going to present a resolution as a member of the board, that it's sent out ahead of time so that we can give and also then a member of one of the IPL or anybody else would see it ahead of time, and maybe they would have comment that they could send back to the person who's presenting it, and maybe it could be looked at ahead of time and offer some suggestions to refine it ahead of time. So I just offer that as a suggestion.
Okay, was there something on today's agenda that stuck out in your mind about that?
Well, even your resolution that you presented, if it was sent out ahead of time, we could have, but it also happened at the last board meeting.
Okay.
I have no problem with trying, but I'm not going to stick to being a rule.
Okay, well, good thought. Anybody else? Any board members? Any staff? Anybody? Robert? I haven't heard from you all night. It worries me. Yeah, it worries me. Okay, then if there's nothing else, 1 second. Yeah.
Next meeting.
Oh, next meeting is, who's got a calendar?
February 20th.
Huh?
February 20th.
February 20th.
February the 20th, then right here at 2:30. Anything else? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.